Hello guys. Tonight, I want to take you somewhere forgotten by time, tucked in the quiet corners of memory, into the story of someone who wore a uniform, carried a rifle and crossed an ocean, but whose name history rarely utters aloud. Tonight, we begin a long and gentle journey into what it was like to be a black soldier in World War II. Before we start, I'm always curious. Where and when are you listening from? Leave a comment with your location and the current time. It's a small way of connecting through the quiet hours, like stars scattered across the sky, each glowing in its own stillness. Now, take a moment to get cozy. Nestle into your pillow, let your limbs grow heavy, and allow your breath to slow. You're safe here. The world can wait. Let the distant echoes of history lull you toward rest. You're 19, maybe 20. The year is 1942. You're standing at a train station in Georgia, wearing a pair of wool trousers too stiff in the knees and a shirt your mother ironed flat just that morning. The sun is already climbing, heavy and thick with southern heat, clinging to your skin like honey. You've never left your town before. Not really. Maybe once to Macon, to visit a cousin who said the city was too loud for sleeping. Now you're leaving for good. Or at least, that's how it feels. Uncle Sam wants you. You're going to war. Your mama gave you a letter, folded twice, pressed into your palm before she turned away so you wouldn't see her cry. Your little brother clung to her skirt, the one she wore on Sundays. He didn't say anything, just stared. You wanted to kneel down and tell him everything would be all right, but you didn't. Because what could you say? What could you promise? You didn't even open the letter. You tucked it into your jacket pocket and pretended it wasn't burning a hole there. The train hisses to life, its wheels churning against the rails, and you climb aboard with your duffel bag slung over your shoulder. Every seat is filled with young men who look like you, nervous, proud, quiet. There's a smell of shoe polish and starch in the air, mixed with the metallic tang of steam. You find a seat beside the window. Outside, the trees blur into a ribbon of green. You pass small towns with names you've never heard, houses with sagging porches, fields of cotton already browned by the sun. The ride lasts forever and not long enough. When you arrive, it's Camp Lee in Virginia, and the world is suddenly different. You notice it right away. There are 2 mess halls, one for white soldiers, one for black, 2 barracks blocks, 2 lines for medical checkups, 2 sides of everything. The war might be in Europe, but segregation is still your daily uniform. Your sergeant is a white man from Alabama. He doesn't say much unless he's yelling, calls you boy, even though you're only 3 years younger than him. One day, during drills, you mess up the left turn and he makes you run laps until your legs shake. When he finally calls you in, he mutters, "Get your act together. You coloured boys don't get second chances over there." You try to swallow the words. You want to say something, but the words stay behind your teeth like stones. That night in your bunk, you write a letter to no one in particular, just to write. You talk about the dust, the sweat, the loneliness. You wonder what it'll feel like to fire a weapon. You wonder if anyone will remember your name. You don't send the letter. You fold it up and tuck it behind the photograph of your mama. You learn to shoot, march, salute. You learn that rations are never enough and boots always pinch. You learn that being strong doesn't mean being loud. You see other young men, some tired, some proud. One from Chicago who talks about jazz clubs and proper shoes. One from Mississippi who never learned to read but can fix any engine blindfolded. You become brothers in everything but blood. They say you might be shipped to the European theatre, or the Pacific. They don't tell you much. You aren't in the kind of unit that gets told things. You're in a labour battalion. You dig, you lift, you build. You wonder if that's all you'll ever be allowed to do. Some nights, lying on your cot beneath the hum of electric light, you think about the flag, the same one that flies high over the base, the one in every ceremony, every poster. You wonder what it means to fight for a country that doesn't fight for you. But then you hear laughter from down the hall. Someone has smuggled in a harmonica. A few voices hum softly in the dark, weaving a tune older than the war. You close your eyes and drift, not into dreams of glory, but into the sound of home. You're standing in line again, this time at the docks in New Jersey, boots thick with slush and salt, the winter air biting through the wool of your overcoat. The sea is enormous here, grey and endless, pulsing like a tired breath beneath a dull sky. The ship is a troop transport, its steel hull smeared with ice, its gangplank crowded with men wrapped in gear and worry. They move in silence mostly, shifting their weight from one foot to the other, shoulders hunched against the wind. Some of them look barely old enough to shave. Others are stone-faced, too quiet, as if bracing already for whatever waits across that ocean. You clutch your duffel like it carries something more than socks and rations. You keep one hand in your coat pocket, fingers curled around that same folded letter and the photograph behind it, creased now at the corners. You still haven't read it. When you board, you're herded into the lower decks, the ones with little air and too many men and a low ceiling you have to duck beneath. The smell hits first. Diesel, iron, old water. You find a place on a canvas bunk that hangs from chains, stacked 3 high. You get the middle. The man above you coughs in his sleep. The man below doesn't talk. They packed your unit here, mostly black labourers, stevedores, mechanics, some cooks. Most of the fighting units went up top, where the air moves better and the bunks don't creak as much. You don't ask why. You already know. The voyage takes 10 days. The sea is rough almost all the way, the ship groaning against each wave like it's trying to shake you off. Meals are thin. Powdered eggs, black coffee, bread so dry it crumbles in your hand. You play cards with a corporal from Detroit who says he used to paint signs for barbershops. He draws faces in his notebook sometimes, using a stub of pencil and the torn back of a Red Cross leaflet. One night he sketches you, doesn't ask, just starts drawing while you sit across from him tying your boots. When he finishes, he tears the page out and hands it over. Says you've got the kind of face that'll last longer than the war. You don't know what that means. You fold the paper and keep it inside your Bible. No one really talks about what's coming. There are rumours that you'll land in England first, that the weather is worse than here, that the locals don't like black soldiers, or maybe that they like them too much and that's a problem too. The white officers talk in circles, always just out of earshot. You hear a lieutenant say supply men, not front line, and you feel that familiar mix of relief and something else, something that twists behind your ribs. On the 5th night, the ship jolts hard to port. Someone yells, "U-boat!" and everyone scrambles. You hit the floor and slide halfway under the next bunk. The lights go out. In the dark, you can hear your own breath and someone praying in a whisper, their voice like cracked glass. Nothing hits, no explosion, just silence, and then the sound of boots moving above you, orders called, hatches slammed. Later, the lights come back. No one says anything, but you know how close it was. When you reach the English coast, it's just after dawn. Rain mists the windows as the ship eases into the port. You can smell land before you see it. Smoke and salt and mud, a smell you'll come to know well. You line up again, pack slung tight, rifle heavy against your shoulder. An MP shouts orders. You follow. The streets are narrow, cobbled, slick with rain. Children wave from windows. You wave back, unsure. Some people stare, not at your uniform but at your face, and you see a different kind of curiosity there, one that doesn't carry the same weight as it did back home. Not better, just unfamiliar, for now. They load you into trucks and drive you north to a place called Wiltshire, a base carved into the countryside surrounded by hedgerows and fog. The barracks are colder than you expected. The stoves don't work. The blankets are thin. You sleep in your coat. They assign you to a supply company. Black soldiers, white officers. Your job is to move crates, ammunition, fuel drums, sometimes rations, sometimes something heavier you're not allowed to open. You work in silence mostly. You don't complain. That's the rule. Never give them a reason. One night you're working late under the glow of a single hanging lamp, unloading wooden boxes stamped fragile ordnance, when a white lieutenant stops beside you, watching. You brace. Wait for the voice, the order, maybe worse. But he just says quietly, "You're doing good work." Then he walks away. You don't know what to make of that. You don't trust it. But you carry that sentence with you the way you carry the letter. Tucked away, unopened. It rains nearly every day. The mud is thick, sucking at your boots, turning your socks into cold sponges. Sometimes you stand outside the mess hall and listen to the officers laughing inside. You and the others eat at the back, near the service tent. You get used to it. It starts to feel normal, and you hate that. There are rumours again, about D-Day, about France, about something big. You don't know what it means yet, but you start to see more movement. Convoys, crates, new faces. Everyone's talking about the front like it's a different world. You wonder if you'll see it. One morning, a new notice goes up. Volunteers wanted for a logistics unit bound for Normandy. Dangerous, high stakes, no guarantees. You don't think, you just write your name, not because you want to fight, but because you're tired of waiting. They put you on another boat, smaller this time, flat-bottomed and rusted at the edges, like something not meant to survive the sea. The deck shudders under your boots as it pulls away from the English coast. You watch the cliffs fade into mist, your duffel at your feet, your rifle strapped awkwardly across your chest, still smelling faintly of oil and the salt of someone else's hands. This time there are no bunks, just benches bolted to the sides and canvas overhead that flaps and snaps in the wind like a nervous breath. There are no songs, no one speaks unless they have to. The air tastes like iron and wet rope. You grip the wood beneath you and stare at the grey horizon. Somewhere out there is France. Somewhere out there is the war. When you land, it's not at Omaha or Utah but farther down the coast, near a place called Sainte-Mère-Église. The fighting has already moved inland by the time you arrive, but the beach is still scattered with the remains of it. Broken tanks half buried in sand, helmets filled with rain, crates burst open like ribs. There's a quietness that doesn't feel natural. The sea behind you is calm, almost too calm, and the gulls wheel above like they've forgotten how loud it was just days ago. You're assigned to the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion, an all-black unit working under white command. Their job, and now yours, is to raise and maintain the balloons that hang in the sky like fat silver fish on long wires, meant to stop enemy aircraft from diving too low. You didn't even know what a barrage balloon was until someone pointed at one and told you, "That's your new partner, don't let it fall." You work mostly at night. The balloons have to stay aloft and they're finicky in the wind. You learn to handle the winches, to read the pressure gauges, to patch a tear in the skin with your eyes half shut. You learn how to tie gloves onto frozen fingers, how to balance on the edge of a truck bed while the world sinks into darkness around you. You learn how to move quietly, carefully. You learn not to look at the things half buried in the sand, the things no one has cleaned up yet. You learn how to be invisible. Some of the white officers treat you like a tool, something useful but not quite real. They don't use your name, just you, or private, or nothing at all. But the French villagers look at you differently. They've never seen a black man before, not up close. The children stare with wide, curious eyes. A woman hands you a slice of bread one evening while you're walking past the chapel near the crossroads. She says something you don't understand, but her eyes are kind. She presses the bread into your hand and smiles. You nod. You eat it slowly. It rains almost every day. Normandy is softer than you thought it would be. Not gentle, just old, worn in, as if the land remembers every boot that ever walked across it. Your own boots are beginning to split at the toes. You try to dry your socks at night, hanging them from the edge of your cot like flags, but they stay damp. Your fingers are raw from rope and wind. Your back aches, but the balloons stay up. You keep them there. At night you lie awake listening to the distant thunder of artillery further inland. It sounds like someone dragging iron across the earth. You wonder what it's like up there, closer to the front. You've heard about the Red Ball Express, convoys of trucks driven by men like you, black drivers racing down narrow French roads, carrying fuel and ammunition to the front lines at breakneck speed, under fire, with nothing but instinct and guts. You wonder if you'll be sent to them. You wonder if you should volunteer again. One night the sky flashes and the ground shakes. Someone says it's St. Lo, flattened. You don't know where that is yet. You don't know how much of it was there to flatten. In the morning you help load crates onto a truck bound for the front. You ask the driver where he's headed. He shrugs. Somewhere loud, he says. Later that week you see the aftermath of a German air raid. A field kitchen reduced to scraps of canvas and twisted iron. One of the men you trained with at Camp Lee is lying in the mud, still, face covered with a tarp. You don't ask his name. You already know it. You keep working, keep pulling the cables, keep patching the seams. One day you feel a balloon strain hard against its wire and realise the wind is shifting fast. You shout for help, scramble up the side of the truck, fight the winch, your hands bleeding. A white officer runs over and starts to yell until he sees the balloon rising too fast. Then he helps. The balloon slips its tether, but you manage to haul it back down. After it's secure again, he doesn't say thank you. He doesn't say anything, but he walks away slower than before. There's a rhythm to it now. Mud, rain, wind, cable, lift, hold, repeat. You do your job, you do it well. You begin to understand what war really is. Not the bullets, not the blood, not just. War is long, war is heavy, war is doing something over and over in the dark while no one sees, so someone else doesn't have to die. Sometimes you think about the letter. You still haven't opened it. You imagine what it says. Maybe it's something about God. Maybe it's just her telling you to come home. Maybe it's nothing at all. You don't open it. Not yet. Instead, you fold it again, gently, and return it to your pocket. And then you go back to work, tightening the cable, watching the sky for something falling. The orders come early, slipped into a clipboard passed hand to hand at the edge of the field, just as the sun starts lifting itself out of the mist. You're reassigned. Temporary duty, they say. You and 5 others from the balloon crew. They need bodies, drivers, loaders, runners, for the convoys moving inland. Not replacements, just fill-ins, just more hands. Someone writes support detail on your clipboard. You hear someone else say Red Ball Express. You don't ask questions. You just nod. The truck they give you is old, patched together with wire and grit, painted in wide olive strokes, the windshield cracked like frost along the edges. The gear shift sticks, the brakes groan. You climb into the cab beside a driver named Clark, a tall kid from Baltimore who never takes off his gloves and talks like he's always half a sentence ahead of his thoughts. You ask him how long he's been running the route. He shrugs. Long enough, he says. Long enough to know not to slow down. They show you the route on a map that doesn't have any of the roads marked. Most of the roads don't really exist anymore, just churned up paths through ruined villages and fields that used to be something else. Your job is simple. Load the crates, guard the truck, ride, unload, repeat. You don't have a weapon. Not really. They give you an old M1 with no sling and no one says if it works or not. There's no time for practice. The first run takes you towards St. Lo, what used to be St. Lo. The road narrows after the first hour, bordered by hedgerows too tall to see over. You pass white painted signs hammered into the ground. One way only, keep moving, don't stop. Clark keeps his foot heavy on the gas. The truck rattles with every pothole, the engine screaming like it's being dragged. You pass the wreckage of another truck in a ditch. Its tyres are missing. The cab burned out. No one says anything. You just drive. The villages come in fragments. Stone walls, craters, pieces of roof still clinging to beams like broken wings. French families watch from the shadows. Some wave, most don't. You wave anyway. When you reach the depot outside St. Lo, you smell the city before you see it. Something between burned leather and wet bricks. The trees around it are stripped bare, bark split, leaves gone. St. Lo isn't a place anymore. It's rubble with a name. You help unload ammunition, crates marked in chalk, 50 cal, 30 cal, grenades, fuses. The white soldiers in charge of the depot don't look at you much. They just point. Over there. Stack it tight. Hurry up. You do as you're told. There's no break. No coffee. You eat a dry biscuit while sitting on the back of the truck, your feet dangling just above the mud. Clark smokes a cigarette and tells you about his girl back home. Her name's Mabel. She sends him letters with pressed flowers inside. He never shows you one. He just says the smell helps him remember what the world used to feel like. When it's time to head back, the sun's already sliding behind the clouds. The sky turns a soft, heavy blue. Clark flicks the headlights off. Convoy rules. No lights, no talking, no stopping. You sit with your rifle across your knees, eyes scanning the trees. The road feels longer coming back. Halfway there, the truck behind you blows a tyre and veers off the path. No one stops. You look back once, just once, and see sparks kicking up as the undercarriage scrapes rock. Then it's gone behind a turn. Clark keeps driving. By the time you return to camp, your legs ache, your shoulders are stiff, your mouth tastes like fuel. You don't speak much that night. You lie on your cot and stare at the ceiling of the tent while someone snores in the dark. In the morning you're told to do it again, and you do, again, and again. Over the next 2 weeks you run the road to St. Lo 10 times, maybe more. You lose count. Some days the dust is so thick it coats your teeth. Some days it rains and the roads vanish beneath water, turning the trucks into sleds. Once you pass the remains of a tank half submerged in a crater, its turret twisted to the side like a broken arm. Once you see a white soldier pointing a rifle toward a barn. You hear shouting. You don't stop. You keep going. Sometimes you forget what day it is, but you remember what your hands feel like at the end of each shift. Swollen, cracked, covered in grease and dirt and rope burns. You see another black driver get stopped by a white officer. Something about fuel records, about time logs. Voices raised, hands on rifles. The driver doesn't raise his voice, he just stands there. Still. Straight. You watch until it ends and he walks away without a word. You see, over and over, what it means to serve. And what it doesn't change. There's no parade here, no banner, just mud and crates and the endless roar of trucks. You get used to the rhythm. You wake, you load, you ride, you unload, you return. And each time, when you close your eyes, you still feel the road beneath you, even in sleep. You wake in the early dark before the first horn sounds, boots still damp from yesterday's rain, your blanket clinging to your body like a second skin. The canvas of the tent breathes in and out with the wind, a soft rustling sound that almost sounds like the sea, though you're far from the coast now. The others around you sleep in uneven rhythms, deep, snoring, restless, turning. You sit up slowly, legs stiff, joints aching from the cold that never seems to leave. There's a letter under your cot. You recognise the envelope, the writing, careful, curved, pressed hard into the paper. You don't know who put it there. Maybe it arrived with the last bundle of mail. Maybe someone found it at the admin desk, finally passed it along after days of being misplaced. Or maybe it just appeared, like something that was waiting for the right moment. You don't open it. You carry it with you all morning, tucked into the inside pocket of your jacket just above your heart. It feels heavier than it should. You tell yourself you'll read it later, maybe at lunch, maybe after your shift, maybe when the rain stops, but the rain never stops. The clouds hang low over the depot, sagging with weight they've held too long. You spend most of the morning moving crates of mortar shells from a storage shed to the waiting trucks. Your gloves are wet through by the second hour. One of the crates slips in your grip, lands on your boot with a dull, punishing thud. No one notices. You say nothing. Clark is gone, sent back to England. He didn't say goodbye, just disappeared one morning, a new name on the roster in his place. A quiet man from Arkansas who doesn't talk, just nods and drives. You sit beside him in the cab and wonder if he knows your name. You never ask. The road feels longer now, not because of the miles, but because of what it's become, an endless loop of forward and back, forward and back. The convoy shifts like a body with too many legs, always in motion, never resting. At night, when the trucks stop, you sleep in a hollow dug just off the road, wrapped in your coat, head resting against your pack. You hear gunfire sometimes in the distance, small arms, short bursts, like someone clapping slowly with iron hands. You dream of things you don't remember in the morning. One evening, as you're cleaning mud off your boots beside the mess tent, a white officer from another unit asks you a question. Just a simple question. Do you know where the latrines are? He doesn't say please, doesn't look you in the eye. You answer politely. He walks away. It's nothing. But you stand there for a long time after, hands gripping the cloth, knuckles pale. Later, another soldier, a corporal from your own company named Jennings, sits beside you with a tin cup of weak coffee and tells you a story about a preacher he knew back in Mississippi who once tried to vote. Tried. He never got to. Not really. Just made it to the courthouse steps before a deputy turned him around. Jennings laughs when he tells it, but there's no humour in it. Just the sound of something rusted through. You finally open the letter. It's your mother's handwriting. The paper is thin, already beginning to wear at the creases. She tells you the dog ran off again but came back 2 days later, smelling like rain and chimney smoke. She says your cousin Elijah found work in a factory in Birmingham, something with rubber seals. She says your little brother asks about you and he thinks no one's listening. And then, near the end, she writes something simple. I know you're somewhere the Lord didn't mean for you to be, but I know he walks beside you anyway. Just keep walking. You fold the letter back along its seams. You read it again the next morning, and again that night. You carry it in your chest pocket until the ink begins to blur from sweat and rain. The war continues without ceremony. You hear rumours of Paris, that it's been taken, that the Germans are pulling back, that the end might be near, or at least visible on the horizon, like the first line of a light before dawn. No one believes it out loud. You just keep driving. The trucks are thinner now, fewer spares, fewer drivers. You feel the weight of it with every turn of the wheel. There are new faces in the depot every day. Men fresh from the ports, uniforms too clean, eyes too wide. You nod to them, most don't nod back. One night you're asked to help bury a soldier. You don't know his name. He wasn't in your unit, just a truck from another line. Wrong place, wrong time. You and two others dig the hole just off the road beneath a broken willow. No ceremony, no flag, just silence and the sound of dirt falling on cloth. Someone makes a cross from a broken pallet and writes "unknown" in charcoal across the grain. You press your palm flat against the wood before leaving, as if to give something of yourself to a man you never met. The next day the trucks roll again, and so do you. You count the days by the number of fuel drums you lift. You measure time in crates, in miles, in silence. The sun breaks for the first time in days. It's thin and uncertain, filtered through the remains of a storm, but it's enough to make the mud crack slightly at your boots as you walk across the depot yard. You blink against the light like it's something unfamiliar. The others move more quickly under it, as if warmth might mean the war is softening. It isn't. You're reassigned again. This time, not a temporary detail, not a stand-in. You're moved to a fuel depot outside Chartres, part of the long, reaching hand that feeds the trucks moving toward Paris. The word comes down quietly, from an officer holding a clipboard who doesn't look up when he calls your name. No explanation, just orders. You pack your things, what little there is, and ride in the back of a canvas-covered lorry with two others, men you barely know but who seem already worn thin, like old rope. The depot is larger than you expect. Rows of drums stretch across a field once used for wheat, now carved up by tyre tracks and the heavy boots of men. The air smells constantly of gasoline, thick, sweet, metallic. You feel it settle in your skin, your lungs. Your first task is simple: inventory, stacking, logging. Fuel in, fuel out, keep it moving, always moving. They house you in a temporary structure, plywood walls, corrugated steel roof, cots arranged in rows with just enough space to swing your legs over the side. You're lucky. Some of the men still sleep in their trucks. One morning you're sent on a delivery convoy headed northeast. The lead truck carries jerrycans strapped in clusters of 6, painted red with black stenciling. Your truck is third in line. The air is dry, the dust kicked up behind you like smoke. A mechanic rides beside you. His name is Thomas. He speaks slowly, deliberately, always watching the road like he's waiting for something to rise up out of it. He tells you that Paris is near, not close, not within reach, but near enough to change the shape of the war. He says he saw a man weep when he heard it might be free soon, not because of strategy or victory or politics, just because of the music. Because he remembered Paris as a sound, the hum of violins, cafe voices, women singing half out of key from open windows. Thomas says he wants to hear it once before he dies, just once. When you stop for the night in a clearing near a broken-down church, you sit on the hood of the truck and listen to the air. It's so quiet that you can hear the small things, the creak of a strap, the ticking of the engine as it cools, a bird calling out somewhere unseen. You wonder what Paris sounds like. You've never heard a city sing. You try to imagine it. You fail. The next day you reach the outskirts of a village so small it barely has a name. A boy comes running down the road barefoot, waving a hand-painted American flag no bigger than a handkerchief. Behind him, a woman stands in the doorway of a house that leans slightly to one side. She nods as you pass. You return the nod. That's all there is. You deliver the fuel. You load the empties. You leave. On the ride back, Thomas says he heard a rumour that a few black GIs were in Paris already. Not many. Maybe just drivers, cooks. But there, inside the city. He says the army isn't rushing to tell anyone, says they're worried how it'll look. A liberated capital, and the first boots on the ground belong to men who can't sit at the front of a bus back home. You don't say anything, but you think about it the whole ride back. At the depot, a new batch of recruits has arrived. Young, faces still smooth, voices too loud. They look at you like you've been here forever, like you know something they don't yet understand. You don't try to correct them. You just tell them where the food line starts and where to get gloves and which cot hasn't been claimed. That night you write a letter. It's short. You tell your mother that the sun came out, that your hands don't hurt as much this week, that you met a man who wants to hear Paris sing. You don't say anything about Saint-Lô, or the mud, or the hole you helped dig. You fold the paper carefully, press the edges flat, and walk it down to the post officer yourself. He looks at you like he isn't sure if he should take it. Then he does. You walk back slowly, watching the sky. It's turning red at the edges, like something lit behind a curtain. You wonder if that's what Paris looks like now. Bright and blurred, too close to imagine. You sleep without dreams that night. Only motion, only movement. The war rolls forward, and you with it. The trucks begin rolling east. Not all at once, not in a parade, just a slow ripple, like a long exhale from a tired mouth. You hear it first in murmurs between the lieutenants, and then it spreads. Movement orders, rotation. Paris is open, not to everyone, just to some, just enough. You're not told anything directly, but 2 days later you're put on a manifest bound for a central supply point outside Versailles. Just a logistics transfer, they say, just to move crates. But the look on your sergeant's face says otherwise. He hands you the papers with a flat kind of care, and you nod like you don't notice the quiet. You're issued a new jacket, not really new, just someone else's name stitched inside the collar, half torn. The sleeves are too long. You roll them once, then again. It still feels strange on your arms, like wearing someone else's history. The convoy departs before dawn. This truck's quieter than the last. You sit behind the wheel, alone, with your rifle slung beside the seat and the road stretching out like a spine beneath grey skies. The route winds past shattered farmhouses, hills blooming with early fog, and the slow skeletons of things burned, broken, half-remembered. France is softer here. Old stone walls climbing with ivy, fences leaning toward the ground as though whispering to the earth. By noon, the trees thin, and the shapes begin to rise in the distance. You don't believe it at first. You think maybe your eyes are playing tricks, but it's there. Paris, quiet under a cloudy sky, rooftops lined in slate and smoke, chimneys like fingers reaching. No banners, no celebration, just a city waiting, watching. You don't enter Paris directly. No one in your unit does. You're stationed a few kilometres outside at a marble-floored depot on the grounds of what used to be a chateau. The grass is overgrown. Ivy climbs the stone like it's trying to forget. Inside, they've set up storage halls, ammunition, rations, radio gear. You sleep in what might have once been a ballroom. The chandeliers are still there, covered in canvas. You run your hand along one of the marble columns and wonder how many footsteps passed here before yours. Dancers, servants, ghosts. There are other black soldiers here. Clerks, quartermasters, engineers. One man, older than most, says he was stationed in North Africa before this. Saw Casablanca, saw dust that rose like smoke and hung in the air for days. You sit beside him one evening, trading silence like currency. He doesn't ask your story. You don't ask his. It's enough just to sit and be quiet. They tell you you're not to go into the city. Not officially. You're not on leave. Not cleared. Not welcome, if they were being honest. Your support. Your background. You're the hands beneath the wheel. But one night, a corporal in the motor pool says he knows a back road. Just for an hour. Just to see. You don't ask why. You just climb into the truck. The air changes the moment you pass the last checkpoint. You feel it in your chest. Not freedom exactly. Just something old and weightless. Paris doesn't rise like other cities. It sprawls. It folds over itself like fabric. The streets shine under a sheen of mist. The lights are dim, rationed. But they glow enough to catch the edges of statues and doorways, stone bridges, and carved angels leaning from rooftops. You pass a cafe with a shutter half open and see a woman wiping glasses behind a bar, her hands moving in slow circles like she's polishing memory. No one stops you. You park the truck near the Seine, just long enough to walk across the Pont Neuf. Your boots click softly on the stones. The river moves like a voice beneath the city, wide and slow. There's no crowd, no music, just Paris, breathing, waiting for something else to begin. You think of Thomas, of the way he said he wanted to hear the city sing. You don't hear singing, but you do hear a violin. Just one, from somewhere you can't quite see. A single note stretched into the night like a thread. You don't stay long. The corporal doesn't speak on the drive back. He just turns up the collar of his coat, stares ahead. When you reach the depot, you go straight to your cot, lie down, boots still on. You don't sleep right away. You listen to the sounds around you, someone coughing, the quiet squeal of a cot frame shifting, a page turning in the dark. And beyond that, the memory of the bridge, the mist, the echo of music. You don't tell anyone the next day. You carry the city like a secret, like something you borrowed and aren't sure how to return. Later that week, you're pulled from supply and placed on a demolition detail, a clean-up crew clearing German equipment from an old airfield near Reims. You leave the depot behind, pack your things in silence and board a new truck. You don't go back to Paris, but it stays with you. Not the buildings or the bridges or even the light. Just the sound of a violin and the feeling of marble beneath your fingers. The new road is different, quieter, less travelled. You ride east with a team of 6 in the back of a weapons carrier, knees knocking together over every bump, the canvas above you stained with old rain. The sergeant says little during the briefing, just a few clipped sentences: airfield, German wreckage, clear the site. You're not told why, you're not told what happened there, just that it needs cleaning. The field is north of Reims, somewhere between nothing and less than that. It isn't on any of the maps you've seen. When you arrive, the trees thin into low brush, and the land levels out into a wide pitted plain. A long runway stretches across it, cracked and blackened, weeds already breaking through the seams. You see the shapes first, shattered Luftwaffe planes lying like broken birds across the tarmac, wings crumpled, canopies shattered, fuselages split. The silence is strange, not peaceful, just hollow. They set up a tent near what used to be the control station. You can still see the rusted remains of radios inside, half melted, wires curling from the walls like veins. You're handed gloves, tools, a pry bar and a canvas sack. Your job is to strip the wrecks. Wires, gauges, bolts, anything that can be salvaged. Anything with a serial number. You don't ask what it's for. You don't ask what happened to the crews. There's no talk of that. You climb into the first plane. It's German, painted in faded grey. The swastika on the tail barely visible under soot. Inside the cockpit, the seat is torn. The controls frozen in a sharp turn to the left. There's a hole in the windshield. You don't look through it. You work slowly, your breath fogging in the cool air. Metal creaks beneath your knees. By noon, your gloves are black. You stop for a can of rations, beans, dry bread, a sliver of chocolate so thin it almost isn't there. You sit with the others under a collapsed wing and eat in silence. One man hums something under his breath. A hymn, maybe, or a tune he made up just to fill the space. In the afternoon, the wind picks up and the whole field whistles through broken steel. You begin to think of the airfield as something alive, breathing in the wind, groaning beneath your boots. There's no gunfire here, no explosions, but you feel danger anyway, as if the memory of violence still clings to the soil. On the third day, you find a patch of burned ground behind the hangars, black, uneven, still smelling faintly of oil and something else. There's no order to it, just a place where something ended. You don't ask what, you don't want to know, you just keep walking. That night you can't sleep, the wind won't stop. It slips through the seams of the tent and brushes the back of your neck like cold breath. You lie on your cot, jacket still on, hands crossed over your chest. The stars above are thin and sharp, barely visible through the canvas flaps. You think of the planes again, how they were once engines of speed and fire, now nothing but carcasses. You wonder how many of them had men inside when they fell. You wonder if those men were young, if they had names, if someone is still waiting to hear about them, not knowing they're waiting in vain. You stop yourself. That's dangerous thinking. You shift your weight. You close your eyes. You listen to the wind. The next morning, one of the men, Morris, a mechanic from outside Baton Rouge, cuts his hand on a jagged edge of wing metal. The gash runs deep. You help him wrap it. He doesn't say much, but when he looks at you, his eyes hold something unsettled, something he won't put into words. You nod without speaking. That's enough. The week passes. The airfield empties slowly, piece by piece. Trucks come in and haul away the scrap. The piles shrink. The sounds of work fade. Your hands toughen. Your boots fray at the soles. You receive a letter on the 6th day. Not from home. From Clark, the driver from before, the one who disappeared without warning. He writes from a field hospital in England. Shrapnel in the leg. Healing slowly. He says the nurses are kind, that the food is bad, that he misses the rhythm of the road more than he thought he would. He doesn't ask where you are, he just says, "Stay alive," that's all, just stay alive. You fold the letter and put it with the others. On the last day at the airfield, you walk alone down the runway at dusk. The sky is soft above you, streaked with gold and violet. The wrecks are mostly gone now, but the shape of them remains, as if the ground remembers their weight. You walk to the far end of the tarmac, past the perimeter fence, until you reach the trees. There, growing between two charred posts, is a single violet flower. Small, with a thin green stem and petals turned slightly toward the dying light. It doesn't belong here, but it's there. You crouch beside it. Don't touch it. Just look. Then you stand, turn, and walk back toward the trucks. You leave the airfield with no ceremony. No one thanks you. No one says goodbye. The trucks come early and pull away slowly, their engines growling low like they're reluctant to leave. You sit on a bench seat in the back, arms wrapped around your knees, duffel at your side. The field disappears behind you, swallowed by morning mist. No one speaks. There's nothing to say. The convoy heads northeast, deeper into France, where the towns are smaller and the roads narrower, patched with gravel and the remains of bombed culverts. You pass villages that look like they're waiting to remember something. Their shutters drawn, chimneys cold, laundry lines sagging like flags after rain. In one of them, a girl stands at the edge of a doorway holding a blue tin cup. She stares straight at the truck as it passes, unblinking. You hold her gaze for only a second, but it stays with you. The new assignment isn't glamorous. You're part of a mobile quartermaster unit now, packing supplies, issuing boots, inspecting fuel drums, stamping manifests. You work out of a barn with half a roof, pigeons nesting in the rafters. There's mud on the floor that never dries, even when the sun cuts through the boards. You sweep it once, twice, then give up. The mud always returns. The days fall into rhythm. You rise early, lace the same boots, eat the same tasteless food, dried potatoes, powdered milk, coffee that tastes like rust. The officers are less interested in names here. Just roll calls and rosters. Just numbers. When a name is mispronounced, no one corrects it. It's easier that way. You find yourself collecting things. Small things. Not valuables, not souvenirs. A strip of parachute cord you keep tied around your wrist, frayed at one end. A button from a German tunic turned smooth from ashen time. A British coin, bent down the middle. Things that don't belong to anyone anymore. You keep them in the side pocket of your pack. You don't know why. Only that they feel like proof. That you were here. That someone was. One night, while cleaning rifles, a private named Lewis from Harlem tells a story about a boy back home who used to shine shoes outside a theatre. Said he'd only do it for women in red dresses. Said he'd refuse men altogether. Too much shoe and not enough story, he'd say. Lewis laughs at the memory. Then he goes quiet. The sound of brushes scraping metal fills the silence. You wonder how many stories are gone already. How many will never be told. You think about writing yours down. Not for anyone. Just to keep it from slipping. You start in the back of your field manual, scribbling notes beside diagrams of truck parts and supply chains. You don't write in order, just fragments, sentences, things you remember but don't want to carry anymore. The truck with the piano in the back, the man with only one boot limping across a ruined road, the sound of the violin in Paris, the flower at the airfield. You don't show it to anyone, you don't give it a title, you just add to it quietly when no one's looking. One afternoon a colonel comes through inspecting the depot. He doesn't speak to any of the black soldiers, not directly, not even the senior men. He walks past you without slowing, eyes already on the next crate. The lieutenant whispers something to him about efficiency. The colonel nods. Then he's gone. You and the others return to your work. Later that day you find a photograph under a pile of blankets. A woman in a white dress standing beside a man in uniform. Neither smiling, just standing. Still. Someone must have dropped it. You ask around, but no one claims it. You clean it gently with your sleeve and slip it into your book. Another piece. Another story you don't know. That night, it rains again. A hard, soaking rain that seeps through the roof, puddles on the floor, soaks your socks while you sleep. You don't bother moving. You just lie there, eyes open, listening to the water hit the canvas above like slow applause. You think about what you're carrying. Not just the gear, not the crates, or the fuel, or the paperwork, but the weight that doesn't fit into packs, the names of the dead you never knew, the letters unanswered, the silence between orders. You press your hand to your chest, feel the soft crunch of old paper. The letter from your mother still folded tight after all this time. You haven't read it again. You don't need to. It's already written into you. The next morning you wake to fog thick as smoke. The depot feels like it's floating in it. You dress slowly. No one speaks. You find another note tacked to the wall, rotation again. Forward movement, not far, just enough. You gather your things, not all of them, just what matters. And then you step outside, into the grey. They don't call it a front. Not exactly. Not at first. The orders use words like support and logistics reinforcement. But even before the trucks begin rolling again, Something shifts in the air. The officers speak more quietly. The briefings are shorter. Ammunition loads are double-checked. Rations are packed with more salt than usual, as though your body will need help remembering what's real. You hear the name only once in the early days. Hurtgen. The syllables are harsh, uneven, like something cracked underfoot in the woods. The older men in your unit say it with a kind of hesitation. Not fear exactly. Something duller. As if it's a place they've already dreamed about but haven't seen. You don't ask questions. You learn early not to ask. The trucks crawl east through the fog. The terrain turns jagged. Trees thicken. Roads become narrower, then steeper. Mud sloshes under the wheels, rising in oily streaks that stick to the undersides like tar. The forest begins to close in. The sky above becomes only a suggestion, just grey between branches. Days and nights blend together. You arrive at a supply clearing just short of the forest line. The place isn't marked, not even on the field maps. Just a shallow pocket in the earth surrounded by pines. The air smells like rot and cordite. You step down from the truck and the mud immediately swallows your boot halfway. No one laughs. No one even notices. There's already a group there. Infantrymen. White. Tired. Their uniforms hang from them like soaked rags. Faces smeared with camouflage paint. Fingers twitching even at rest. One of them leans against a crate, eyes half closed, muttering something to no one. When he looks up, he sees you and pauses. His eyes narrow. He looks at your patch, then your skin, then back down to the ground. He says nothing. The silence between you stretches. Your assignment isn't to fight. Not technically. You're there to run munitions, haul wreckage, resupply lines that barely exist. You're there to keep others alive. But the war doesn't care what your papers say. Not here, not in the Hurtgen. The trees tower above everything, tall and cold and patient. You move through them with your team, carrying crates of artillery shells and cases of dry socks. The Germans shell the roads almost hourly, picking off supply vehicles like they're plucking teeth. You learn the sound of incoming before you know what's been fired. The whine, the pause, then the earth cracking open like a scream with no throat. You lose your first man 2 days in. Right. Quiet. Georgia drawl. Never swore. He stepped outside the truck to adjust a tarp. That's all. A shell landed 20 yards off. Just enough to throw him against the trees. He was gone before anyone reached him. His helmet rolled down the hill, came to rest beside your boot. No one says a prayer. There's no time. The ground's too cold to dig. The sergeant just takes his name off the roster. The next morning you wake with frost in your eyelashes. You brush it away and your fingers feel like someone else's. Your breath clouds in the dark. You wonder if your mother ever imagined this. Her son lying in the dirt on the far side of the world, his skin numb and his name not yet forgotten. You see more wounded men pass through than you can count. They don't speak. They don't look at you. Their faces are covered in grime, but their eyes are empty. Not dead, just emptied out. One of them, a boy barely 17, stares at your hands as you hand him a canteen. "You from home?" he whispers. You nod. "Don't feel like it," he says, then limps away into the fog. That night, a corporal from your unit, Hayes, tries to warm his boots by the fire and catches the sole on a burning log. The rubber melts fast. He curses, kicks the stump, then starts laughing. Sharp, too loud. It echoes between the trees. No one joins in. He quiets eventually. But the sound doesn't leave. You begin to lose track of how long you've been there. Time folds in the woods. Days are just cold hours tied together by fatigue. Nights are stretches of darkness broken by distant shelling and the low growl of trucks trying not to stall. You sleep with your weapon across your chest and your journal under your back. The only two things that feel like they might still keep you grounded. You add to the journal again. Just a sentence this time. The trees do not move, but they see everything. You don't know what it means, but it feels true. One day, you carry crates toward a foxhole and pass a medic station set up under a camouflage tarp. Inside, men are stretched out on stretchers made from old doors. One groans, another mutters scripture under his breath. You stop, hand the medic a bandage roll and glance down. The soldier on the stretcher stares back at you. Black. Maybe 19, maybe younger. Eyes wide open, chest not moving. You know that look. You know it because you've seen it in your own reflection once, briefly, on the day the sky turned orange back at the depot and no one spoke for hours. The medic covers the boy's face with a stained blanket. That night, it snows. Just a dusting. Just enough to soften the lines of the battlefield. You wake to a world that looks almost clean. Almost. But the illusion fades quickly. The snow turns grey under boots, red in places you don't want to look. You wonder how long the trees have been here. Hundreds of years. Maybe more. You wonder how many wars they've watched. How many names they've heard called out and never answered. You tighten the strap on your helmet, sling your rifle, and move toward the tree line. Another crate needs carrying. Another hour needs passing. And somewhere beneath your coat your heart still beats. The snow falls heavier now. It muffles the world, draping the forest in a thick white blanket that dulls even the sharpest edges. When you step outside your shelter, your breath curls in soft clouds before fading into the cold air. The ground crunches beneath your boots, each step measured, careful, as if the forest itself might listen and judge. The trees, tall and skeletal in the grey light, stand motionless, their branches weighed down by snow, creaking softly with the wind. You carry a crate of ammunition along a narrow path, the weight pressing into your shoulders, the wood rough against your gloves. The smell of wet pine and earth surrounds you, mixed with the distant metallic scent of spent shells and machinery. Somewhere nearby, a low rumble shakes the ground, a reminder that the war continues, unrelenting outside this fragile white world. The men around you move silently, faces set in tired lines, eyes hollow but watchful. You exchange no words, only nods or brief glances. Speech feels heavy here, too loud against the stillness of the snow. Inside your pack, the worn field manual with your scribbled notes feels heavier than the crate. The words you wrote feel distant now, like echoes from another life. At the supply point, you help unload trucks while the cold seeps into your fingers. The officers bark orders clipped and sharp, their breath steaming as they speak, but their eyes rarely meet yours. You remind yourself it's not personal, it's war. It's how things have always been. Later, as dusk settles, the sky turning to bruised purples and fading blues, you sit beside a small fire with Lewis and Hayes. The flames flicker weakly, struggling against the cold. You pass around a canteen, sharing the warmth in sips. Hayes pulls out a harmonica and plays a slow, melancholy tune. A song you think you might have heard once back home, in a crowded room filled with smoke and laughter long gone. You close your eyes briefly, the notes threading through the silence, carrying with them memories of other places, other times. When you open them again, Lewis is staring at you, his expression unreadable. "We keep moving," he says softly, "because if we don't, they'll forget we're here." You nod, but say nothing. The weight of those words settles between you, heavier than any crate or rifle. That night you write again in the back of your manual. The letters are slow, deliberate, cold steel and quiet names. The forest holds us all, alive or not. You try not to think of the boy you saw in the medic station, the one with eyes open but no breath. His face haunts the edges of your dreams, a shadow you can't shake. Sleep comes fitfully, broken by distant thunder of artillery and the soft groan of the trees bending under snow. When dawn arrives, pale and fragile, you rise and prepare to move again. The path ahead is uncertain, the cold biting deeper with every mile, but you carry on, with the quiet hope that your steps leave marks not just in the snow, but in history. The morning breaks soft and grey, the sun a pale smear behind low clouds. The world is quiet except for the crunch of your boots in the snow and the distant hum of engines moving supplies down rough roads. You sit by the fading embers of last night's fire, your breath rising in thin spirals as you pull a folded letter from your coat pocket. The paper is thin and worn, edges soft from being folded and unfolded countless times. The handwriting is familiar, curved, careful, full of pauses that only someone who knows you well could make. It's from home, from your mother. You don't open it right away. Instead, you trace the creases with a gloved finger, remembering the dusty porch where she must have sat to write it. The way her voice sounds in your memory, soft, steady, full of things left unsaid. Finally, you unfold the letter. The words speak of quiet things. The garden behind the house, how the roses bloomed late this year, the neighbours who stopped by to ask about you, the slow turning of the seasons back home. There's no talk of war, no mention of battles or dangers, just the pulse of everyday life continuing in a world you can't reach. You read it again and again, letting the words settle like snowflakes melting on your tongue. They remind you of what waits beyond the forest and the smoke and the cold. Later, you share the letter with Lewis as you sit together in the barn. He nods quietly, eyes distant. "My mama writes the same," he says. "Says she prays every night for us all. Doesn't ask how, just prays." You both fall silent. Outside, the wind whistles through broken windows, carrying the faint scent of pine and damp earth. That afternoon you help unload crates of blankets and canned food. The men around you move with slow, heavy steps, faces drawn tight from weeks of cold and exhaustion. Some smile faintly when you hand them warm socks or fresh bread, but the smiles don't reach their eyes. In the evening you fold the letter carefully and slip it back into your coat. You think about the gap between here and home, the miles, the danger, the silence. You wonder if your mother knows how far away you really are, or if she imagines you just down the street safe and waiting. The fire burns low as night settles again, and you wonder how many other letters lie unopened in pockets and packs across the war. How many words left unsaid, waiting to bridge impossible distances. You lean back against the rough wall, eyes on the dark shapes of trees outside, and listen to the quiet, broken only by the steady breathing of your comrades and the soft rustle of a world that keeps turning, even here. Morning arrives without ceremony. The sky is a pale wash of cold light, and the forest seems to hold its breath beneath a blanket of frost. You rise slowly, muscles stiff from the frozen night, and prepare for the day ahead. The men around you move in practiced silence, each absorbed in their own ritual of readiness, checking boots, cleaning rifles, folding blankets. Orders come down through the chain of command like distant thunder, sharp, concise, often too late to change anything. You learn to listen not just for the words, but for the spaces between them, the unspoken meanings carried in glances or the tightening of a jaw. Sometimes, orders feel like a thread stretched taut, ready to snap under the weight of what lies ahead. Today, your task is to transport supplies to a forward position on the edge of the forest. The path is narrow and treacherous, rutted by heavy trucks and churned by rain turned to mud. As you load crates into the back of the truck, the cold bites at your fingers through your gloves, and you wonder how many times you've made this journey already. Each trip feels heavier than the last, not just because of the weight of the cargo, but because of the weight of what you carry inside. You climb into the cab, the engines growl a familiar comfort against the vast quiet of the woods. The driver, a man named Jenkins, is silent except for the occasional grunt. You watch the road ahead through a windshield speckled with frost, trees blurring past like ghostly sentinels. Somewhere beneath the engine's drone, you think you hear the faint echo of distant artillery, a reminder that the war is never far, no matter how still the forest seems. Along the route, you pass signs of battle, craters filled with rain, shattered branches hanging like broken fingers, the charred remains of what was once a farmhouse. Each scar tells a story you don't know, but feel deeply, a silent testament to lives upended. You imagine the people who once lived here, their voices swallowed by the cold air and the ever-encroaching forest. At the forward position, you hand over the crates to weary soldiers whose faces are etched with exhaustion and something deeper. Resignation, perhaps, or the slow burn of hope that they'll see home again. They offer quiet thanks, their eyes flickering briefly with recognition before turning back to the grey horizon. You stay long enough to rest your hands and breathe in the bitter air, then turn back toward the depot. The return journey is slower, the weight of the empty crates a hollow echo in the back of the truck. As you move through the trees, shadows lengthen, and the world takes on a muted palette of blues and greys. Back at camp, you sit alone for a moment, the cold seeping through your jacket. You pull out your journal, fingers tracing the worn pages. You write a few lines, simple observations, fragments of thought, before the light fades completely and the camp settles into the quiet rhythm of night. The forest stands still, watching, waiting. The fog comes early this morning, slipping in like a slow breath, wrapping the forest in a soft grey veil. You wake to it pressing against the canvas of your tent, cool and damp. Outside, the world is muted, edges blurred into shadows. The forest feels different in the fog, closer, yet somehow distant, like a dream half remembered. You pull on your jacket and step outside. The The ground is slick beneath your boots, leaves and twigs slick with moisture. The usual sounds of birds or insects are hushed, swallowed by the mist. You walk toward the supply area, the shapes of trucks and men appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Along the path you catch glimpses of faces in the fog, not just the men you know, but strangers whose features flicker in the grey light. Faces etched with fatigue and fear, eyes that seem to hold stories you can't hear. You wonder how many of these men are thinking the same things you are, how many wonder if the fog might hide them from what's coming, or if it might carry away their names altogether. At the depot, the routine unfolds in slow motion. Crates are unloaded, inventories checked, and orders passed along in hushed tones. The fog clings to everything, dampening voices and softening movements. You work alongside your comrades, your hands moving automatically, your mind drifting between the moment and the memories tucked away in your journal. You think about home, the way your mother's voice sounds in your head when you read her letters, the streets where you grew up, the faces of people who never knew the war was coming, or if they did, couldn't understand why you had to go. You imagine the warmth of summer evenings and the smell of fresh bread from the corner bakery, things that feel as distant as the stars behind the thick fog. During a break, Lewis pulls out a small harmonica and plays a few notes. The sound is soft and fragile, barely carrying through the mist. It reminds you of quiet nights back home, of music that held whole stories in a single breath. You listen without speaking, the notes weaving between the trees and the men, stitching a fragile thread of connection in the cold grey world. As the day wears on, the fog slowly lifts, revealing more of the forest and the scars left by battle. You catch sight of a makeshift memorial, a cross fashioned from splintered wood, wrapped with a faded ribbon. A name is scratched into the bark, worn but still legible. You pause, hands resting on the crate you carry, and let the weight of it settle in your chest. The sun breaks through the clouds just as you finish your shift, casting long shadows across the snow and mud. The forest seems to hold its breath again, waiting for the next story to be written in its quiet depths. You walk back to camp, the journal tucked safely inside your coat. Each step echoes softly in the clearing, a steady beat against the silence. You don't know what tomorrow will bring, but for now, the fog has lifted, and the world feels just a little less heavy. The night stretches long and quiet, broken only by the occasional rustle of wind through the trees, and the distant murmur of soldiers settling into uneasy rest. You lie on your cot, the thin canvas beneath you rough against your back, and stare at the dark ceiling of your tent. Outside, the forest whispers secrets you can almost understand. Faint echoes of lives lived long before you arrived. Memories drift through your mind, unbidden and fragmented. You see faces, your mother's gentle smile, the neighbour's weathered hands, the boy from the medic station whose eyes stayed open even after his breath stopped. Each memory feels like a fragile thread, weaving together the past and present into a tapestry you don't fully grasp yet. You think about the men you serve beside, their stories often left untold. How many come from places where their skin marked them as different, even in their own country? How many have faced not just the enemy across the battlefield, but the prejudice and doubt of their own side? You feel the weight of those unspoken struggles pressing down, heavier than any uniform or rifle. In the quiet, your thoughts wander to the history that shaped you. The long road from fields and factories to this distant forest. The promises made and broken. The battles fought both in the streets back home and on these foreign soils. You wonder how many soldiers carry similar stories, hidden beneath layers of silence. Some nights, you write letters you'll never send. Words meant to reach back through time, to those who wait and those who came before. You fold the paper carefully, tuck it away, and carry the hope that one day these whispers will be heard. The fire outside your tent flickers and dims, the cold seeping back in as the world turns deeper into night. You close your eyes, feeling the steady rhythm of your heartbeat, a quiet defiance against the darkness. Tomorrow, the forest will still be here, waiting to hold more stories, and you will carry yours forward, step by step, breath by breath. Dawn breaks pale and cold, the sky a muted canvas of soft blues and greys. The forest around you is silent, save for the gentle rustling of frost-laden branches as a weak wind stirs them. The snow underfoot is fresh, untouched except for the faint impressions of animals moving quietly before the soldiers wake. You step carefully, feeling the cold press through your boots and seep into your bones. The morning air is sharp, clean, and carries a strange stillness, like the world is holding its breath before the inevitable noise of the day begins. Your breath forms misty clouds as you make your way to the supply depot, the crunch of snow beneath your feet marking a slow, steady rhythm. You notice the lines left by footprints in the snow, the paths others have taken before you. Each step a mark, a moment recorded in the fragile white landscape. You think about how those footprints, so easily erased by wind or more snow, mirror the fleeting nature of life here. How quickly moments, names, even entire lives can fade, swallowed by time and silence. Your hands are numb as you load crates onto the trucks, but you work with a practiced calm. The men around you are quiet, their faces drawn tight with cold and fatigue. You exchange few words. The atmosphere feels heavy with unspoken thoughts. The forest looms close, a dark wall of evergreens standing guard over this small patch of snow-streaked earth. As the convoy moves forward, the truck tires leave fresh tracks beside the footprints you saw earlier, new lines etched into the snow. You glance out at the trees, their bare branches stark against the winter sky, and wonder how many others have passed this way. Soldiers who fought, who died, who hope to return home one day. The journey is slow, each mile a test of endurance. The cold bites deeper, and the weight of the crates feels heavier with every step. Somewhere ahead, artillery fire punctuates the quiet, distant and dull, like thunder on the horizon. At a small clearing, the convoy pauses. You help unload supplies for the men holding the line, rifles resting against trees, eyes scanning the grey horizon. They thank you with nods and tired smiles, gratitude brief but genuine. You take a moment to look around, noticing the fragile beauty of the snow-covered landscape, the way the pale light filters through the branches, the way the shadows stretch and dance on the ground. It feels peaceful, almost serene, but you know better. This quiet can shatter in an instant. The sun sinks low as you return to camp, the sky tinged with faint pinks and purples. You carry the memory of the footprints and tire tracks, the delicate lines in the snow that speak of passage and presence. They remind you that even here, amid the cold and war, life leaves its mark. You settle into your tent, the weight of the day pressing on your shoulders, and write again in your journal. The words come slowly, carefully, lines etched in ink like the footprints you follow. The forest at dusk feels like a living memory, heavy with the weight of untold stories that seem to seep from the soil beneath your boots and hang in the chill air around you. The trees stand tall, their branches bare now, etched black against a sky bleeding into twilight. Shadows stretch and merge, cloaking the underbrush in shifting darkness. You move quietly through this ancient realm, each step softened by a thin carpet of fallen leaves dusted with frost. The scent of damp earth and pine needles clings to the cold air, mingling with a faint metallic tang, the residue of war that never fully washes away. As you walk, your mind drifts to the countless soldiers who have passed this way, men like you, carrying the weight of duty and hope in equal measure. You think about the stories that linger here, the whispered voices of those who walk these paths before you. Some names are known, celebrated in books and memorials. Others are lost to time, buried beneath the trees in silence. Their echoes seem to ripple through the forest, felt more than heard, like distant murmurs carried on the wind. You pause beside a shallow trench, its edges softened by years of rain and snow, barely visible now. You imagine the men who once huddled here, exhausted, cold, watching the horizon for signs of the enemy. The ache in your chest grows as you consider their fear and courage, the lives forever changed in moments that stretched into eternity. Your fingers brush the frozen ground, and you swear you can almost feel the pulse of their presence beneath the earth. Further along, you find a small clearing where a makeshift memorial has been arranged. Simple stones stacked with care, a weathered photograph tucked beneath a rock, a faded ribbon tied to a low branch. You kneel and trace the name etched into one of the stones, the letters rough and worn but still defiantly there. It belongs to a young man you never met, one of countless souls whose stories might have been erased if not for these quiet markers. The fading light filters through the trees, casting long, gentle beams that catch dust and mist in the air. It feels like the forest is holding its breath. bearing witness to the invisible threads that connect past and present, life and loss. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the stillness wrap around you like a fragile shroud. The distant crack of a branch breaks the silence and you startle, reminded that this place is alive, always watching, always remembering. Walking onward, your thoughts return to the men you serve alongside, their strength, their resilience in the face of both the enemy and the barriers placed before them by a world that often refuses to see their worth. You reflect on the countless small acts of kindness and solidarity that sustain you all, the shared rations, a word of encouragement, a brief moment of laughter in the shadow of hardship. These moments feel precious here, rare lights flickering against the encroaching darkness. Night deepens, and the forest swallows the last light. The stars emerge, scattered pinpricks of cold fire against the velvet sky. You find your way back to camp, the familiar outlines of tents and flickering fires grounding you after the weighty solitude of the woods. The men around the fire nod as you approach, their faces drawn but warm in the firelight. You sit, grateful for the quiet company, the shared understanding that even in the loneliest places you're not alone. As you settle in, you open your journal, the pages now thick with words and memories. You write slowly, each line a tribute to the ghosts in the forest and the living who fight beside you. The act of putting pen to paper feels like carving your own mark into the endless story unfolding around you, a quiet rebellion against being forgotten. Outside, the wind sighs through the trees, carrying the forest whispers into the night. You listen, knowing that these echoes will follow you always, a reminder that every step you take is part of something greater, a legacy of courage, endurance, and hope that no darkness can fully extinguish. The camp is a patchwork of shadows and faint light, scattered tents and half-buried crates, a fragile cluster of human life pressed against the vast wilderness. Around you, the men move quietly, some tending fires, others cleaning weapons, their faces marked by exhaustion and the cold. The air smells of wood smoke and damp earth, mingling with the faint metallic tang of equipment and the soft rustle of canvas flapping in a restless breeze. You sit on a worn wooden crate, the rough surface pressing into your palms as you watch the flickering flames of a small fire. Nearby, Lewis and a few others speak in low voices, their words a mixture of shared histories, soft jokes, and unspoken fears. You can hear the cadence of their speech, familiar rhythms shaped by years of growing up in places where dignity was a quiet rebellion. The bonds between you all are forged not just in battle, but in the small moments in between, in the shared rations, the exchanged cigarettes, the way a glance can say what words never do. There is a language here, born of hardship and hope, where silence can speak volumes and a simple touch can steady a trembling hand. You remember a night months ago in a camp much like this one, when the moon hung high and cold in the sky. A young soldier named Harris had lost his footing on a slippery slope, twisting his ankle badly. No medic was nearby, no hospital within reach. It was Lewis who found him, lifting him gently and carrying him back through the darkness. The others helped, moving in practiced coordination without a word. That night, you saw what it meant to be a brother in arms, not just surviving the war but carrying each other through it. There is a quiet strength in this, a shared resolve that transcends rank, colour and background. Here, beneath the stars and under the weight of the same sky, you are bound together by something deeper than orders or medals, a silent vow to endure, to protect, to remember. You think about the contrast between this unity and the world beyond the camp, the world that still wrestles with prejudice, the world that questions your place even as you risk your life for it. You feel the sting of those contradictions keenly, the ache of fighting not just for victory but for recognition, respect and equality. Yet here, in this fragile enclave, those barriers blur. The harsh lines drawn by society soften and fade into the background noise of the war's chaos. You see men of different backgrounds sharing blankets, stories and hope. The colour of skin matters less than the courage it takes to stand side by side in the face of danger. The fire crackles, sending sparks swirling into the cold night air, tiny stars escaping upward into darkness. You breathe deeply, tasting the smoke and the night's chill, feeling the steady pulse of life around you. The quiet conversation continues, punctuated by moments of laughter that feel like rare treasures in this place. As you sit there, you write in your journal. the words slow and deliberate, a testament to these silent bonds. You write for Harris, for Lewis, for the others who share your journey, and for the countless brothers in arms scattered across battlefields unknown. You write so their stories will not be lost, so their strength will not be forgotten. The night stretches on, vast and enveloping. Outside the circle of firelight the forest waits, patient, eternal, holding the memories of all who have passed through its shadowed halls. And here, beneath the endless sky, you find a measure of peace in the quiet solidarity of your comrades. The dawn breaks with a fragile light, pale and tentative, casting a silver glow over the camp that still sleeps beneath a thin veil of mist. The world feels suspended between night and day, a quiet moment of stillness before the day's duties begin anew. You stand at the edge of the clearing, watching the fog drift through the trees like soft ghosts, wrapping the world in a muted embrace. The air is sharp and cold, but there's a faint promise in the light, something tentative, fragile, yet persistent. Today marks a turning point, though it is not announced with fanfare. It is not a grand battle or a heroic charge, but a quiet crossroads where hope and uncertainty meet. You can feel it in the hushed conversations of the men around you, in the lingering looks shared when no one else is watching. The war feels endless, a vast tide pulling you forward, but somewhere deep inside you clutch at the hope that this journey will lead somewhere better. You gather your gear, feeling the familiar weight of your pack and the steady reassurance of your rifle. As you move through camp, the men around you prepare for the day, their faces etched with weariness but also determination. There is an unspoken understanding here. Every step forward is a step away from the past, toward a future that remains uncertain but is worth fighting for. The orders come quietly, delivered with a calm efficiency that barely disturbs the fragile peace. Today, you and your unit will move closer to the front lines, tasked with securing a small village recently reclaimed from enemy hands. It is a job that feels both vital and daunting, the village a symbol of progress in a war that often seems endless. As the convoy moves out, the landscape shifts around you. The forest thins, replaced by fields scarred by battle and dotted with shattered buildings. The air carries a different scent here: smoke, dust, and the faintest hint of something sweet, like wildflowers struggling to bloom amid destruction. You watch as the men pass quietly through this broken world, each lost in their own thoughts, each carrying burdens that no one else can see. Arriving at the village, you're struck by the quiet. The streets are empty, save for the flutter of torn curtains and the occasional stray dog weaving between rubble. The houses, once full of life, stand silent and hollow, their windows like dark eyes watching your every move. You move cautiously, the sounds of your footsteps echoing in the stillness. Here, in this place caught between war and peace, you feel the weight of history pressing down. You imagine the families who fled or hid, the children who never got to play in these streets again. The village is a reminder of what has been lost and what might still be saved. You and your comrades begin the work of securing the area, setting up perimeter defences and clearing out pockets of danger. There is a rhythm to the work, steady and methodical, broken only by the occasional call over the radio or the crackle of a distant gunshot. As you move through the village, you feel a strange mixture of hope and sorrow. Hope for the future, sorrow for the past. At night, the village feels different, haunted by the absence of life and filled with shadows that stretch long and deep. You sit beside a small fire with a few others, sharing stories and silent prayers for those who are no longer here. The flames flicker against worn faces, and for a moment the war feels less vast, less consuming. You write again in your journal, the words flowing more easily now. You write of the village and the men, of hope tangled with loss, of the quiet moments that hold the war's truth. These are the stories you carry with you, the silent crossroads where past and future meet, where courage is born not just in battle, but in the choice to keep moving forward. The night deepens, and the stars shine cold and distant above. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new fears, and new hopes. But for now, in this fragile moment, you find a quiet strength in the knowledge that even in the darkest places, light can find a way. The morning air feels unusually still as you rise before dawn, the sky a faint gradient of deep indigo to soft lavender. The village, now more familiar but no less sombre, lies quiet beneath a thin layer of frost. You wrap your coat tighter, feeling the chill seep through, a constant reminder that the world you inhabit is harsh and unyielding. As you step outside, the pale light catches on shards of broken glass and splintered wood, glinting like forgotten memories scattered across the ground. Your thoughts drift to the past, snatches of childhood, of family gatherings, of the small, simple comforts that once defined home. You carry those memories with you like precious threads woven through the fabric of this harsh new life. They are fragile, yet unbreakable. Each one a tether holding you steady in a place that often feels untethered from humanity. The village stirs slowly with the day's duties, but there is a quiet respect in the way the men move through the streets. There's a shared understanding that this place holds more than just strategic importance. It holds pieces of countless lives, stories interrupted and lives uprooted. You feel a deep ache for the people who called this place home, whose laughter and footsteps once echoed where now there is only silence. You walk past a crumbled wall and pause, noticing a faded photograph tucked beneath a stone, a woman's face smiling softly, eyes full of hope. You imagine her story, who she was, what she dreamed of, how the war tore her world apart. This single image connects you across time and space, a reminder that behind every battle lies a tapestry of human lives, each thread vibrant and real. Later, you join a small group tasked with clearing debris from the main road. The work is slow and methodical, each piece of rubble a small victory against destruction. Conversations are sparse but meaningful, snippets of home, of dreams deferred, of the longing for a world where colour and creed no longer define a man's worth. There is a quiet resilience here, a shared refusal to let despair take root. As the day wanes, you find a moment to sit by the edge of a shallow stream, its waters dark and cold but flowing steadily onward. You trace your fingers along the rough bark of a nearby tree, feeling the pulse of life beneath the surface. The stream's murmur seems to carry whispers of the past, voices of those who walked these lands before, their hopes and fears flowing alongside the current. You think about your comrades, the men who stand beside you, bound by duty and circumstance, each carrying their own memories, pains, and hopes. The war may try to reduce you to numbers, to uniform and rank, but in these quiet moments, you remember that you are more than that. You are a mosaic of histories, dreams, and undying will. As twilight falls, the village is bathed in a soft, melancholy glow. Shadows lengthen, and the air cools once more. You retreat to your tent, pulling your journal from your pack and letting the ink flow freely. Your words weave together the fragments of the day, the faces, the places, the moments that linger like echoes. Writing is your way of preserving what might otherwise be lost, a way to honour those whose voices might never be heard. Outside, the wind rustles through the trees, carrying the quiet songs of the forest and the distant murmurs of a world at war. You listen, feeling the threads of memory stretch out and intertwine, connecting past to present, pain to hope, loss to survival. In this place, at this moment, you understand that the story you live is part of a greater tapestry, one woven not only with conflict and hardship, but with courage, endurance, and the unyielding human spirit. The morning light seeps slowly through the fabric of your tent, casting soft, pale rectangles on the worn canvas. Outside, the village awakens with a muted grace, the sounds of footsteps and hushed voices weaving into the chilly air like fragile threads of life. You step out, the ground still damp with dew, and the scent of wet earth rises quietly beneath your boots. Today is different, not marked by orders or manoeuvres, but by the simple act of living amid war. The tension that usually clings to the air feels lighter, replaced by moments of fragile calm that remind you while you fight. As you walk past the scattered tents and makeshift shelters, you catch glimpses of your comrades, faces etched with exhaustion but softened by small smiles, exchanged over morning coffee or shared cigarettes. Near the village centre, a small group has gathered around a flickering radio, its static crackling softly as news filters through. The voices on the other end speak of advances on distant fronts, of battles won and lost, but the words seem distant here, almost unreal compared to the tangible reality under your feet. Still, there is hope in those broadcasts, a promise that the tide might yet turn, that the darkness might eventually give way. You find yourself drawn to a small cluster of wildflowers, growing stubbornly between cracks in the cobblestones, their delicate petals a vivid splash of colour against the grey backdrop. They seem impossibly fragile, yet they endure, reaching toward the pale sun with quiet determination. It strikes you how much they resemble the men here, their resilience, their refusal to be broken by harsh circumstances. The morning's duties carry you through the village, checking on sentries and helping distribute supplies. Each interaction, though brief, is a thread in the web of solidarity that holds you all together. A nod, a word of encouragement, a shared laugh, small flickers of light in the otherwise heavy shadow of war. At midday, you join a few others for a rare moment of rest beside a ruined chapel at the village's edge. The building is scarred by shellfire, but inside the stained glass windows still catch the sun, casting fractured rainbows onto the rubble-strewn floor. Sitting there, you feel the weight of history settle around you, the countless lives marked by faith, hope, despair, and renewal. One of the men shares a story of his childhood church back home, the choir's voices rising in harmony on Sunday mornings, the scent of incense mingling with polished wood. The memory brings a warmth to the cold afternoon, a reminder of the life waiting beyond the battlefield. As dusk falls, the village softens into shadow. You make your way back to camp, the sky painted in deep purples and muted golds. The firelight flickers against the faces of your comrades gathered around, each one a beacon of resilience amid the encroaching night. You sit quietly, feeling the pulse of shared humanity vibrating through the circle, the unspoken bond that makes this disparate group into a brotherhood. The war may rage on beyond these fires, but here, for a moment, there is peace. Later, as you write in your journal beneath the dim glow of a lantern, your thoughts linger on these flickers of light, the wildflowers, the voices, the laughter that sustain you. They are fragile, yes, but they are also fierce. They carry you through the darkest nights, reminding you that even amid chaos, hope can bloom. Outside, the wind hums softly through the trees, and the stars wink faintly in the vast night sky. You close your eyes, carrying those flickers with you, threads of warmth woven into the long tapestry of this journey. The night is quiet except for the occasional crackle of a dying fire, and the distant chorus of insects settling into darkness. You lie beneath a sky thick with stars, their cold light flickering through the canvas of your tent like tiny distant promises. The air is crisp, carrying with it a faint scent of pine and earth, mingling with the lingering aroma of smoke from last night's fire. The stillness wraps around you, a fragile cocoon holding the war-torn world at bay for just a moment. In these quiet hours, your thoughts turn inward, drifting toward memories of home, the places and faces left behind, both distant and near. You hear them like whispers carried on the wind, soft echoes of laughter and song from a time before the chaos. The smell of fresh-cut grass on summer evenings, the warmth of a mother's embrace, the gentle murmur of family voices around a kitchen table, all seem both impossibly far away and vividly close. You recall the long road that led you here, the steady march from those familiar streets to this foreign land scarred by conflict. The journey was never easy, each step forward weighed down by the knowledge of what you left behind and the uncertain future ahead. Yet those memories are your lifeline, fragile threads that tether you to something beyond the uniform and rifle. Around you, the camp is settling deeper into night. The men nearby speak in hushed tones, their words carrying the weight of their own stories of struggle, hope, and quiet perseverance. Some talk of loved ones they'll never see again, others share dreams of what might come after the war. There is an unspoken understanding in these moments, a shared need to hold on to something human amid the relentless machinery of conflict. You think about the ways home shapes you, even as you stand on distant soil. The traditions, the songs, the values carried within you, they are a part of your armour, an invisible shield that guards against despair. Yet, you also feel the ache of being caught between worlds, the world you come from and the world you're fighting to protect, where too often your worth is measured by the colour of your skin rather than your courage or sacrifice. The wind stirs softly outside, tugging at the edges of your tent like a gentle reminder that the night will not last forever. You reach for your journal, the familiar weight comforting in your hands. Writing feels like reaching across the miles, a way to stitch the present to the past and to those you hold dear. The ink flows slowly, words shaped by longing and resilience. You write not only to remember, but to resist being forgotten, to carve out a place in history where your story, and the stories of so many like you, can live on. Each word is a small act of defiance, a beacon in the dark. As you lay back, the sounds of the camp soften and blend into the night. The gentle breathing of men asleep, the rustling leaves, the faint call of an owl somewhere deep in the woods. These are the whispers of home, carried not just in memory but in the very breath of the earth around you, reminding you that you are never truly alone. In this quiet, suspended moment, you find a fragile peace. The war rages on beyond the edges of this circle of light and shadow, but here, in the stillness, you touch the essence of what you fight for. A future where those whispers might become songs again, where hope is not just a flicker, but a steady flame. The morning breaks slowly, the sky a muted canvas of grey and pale gold, as if hesitant to fully wake. You step outside your tent, the cool air brushing against your skin like a whispered greeting, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and distant smoke. Around you, the camp stirs quietly, figures moving with practiced ease, the soft clatter of equipment mingling with low voices that blend into the morning stillness. Today, the world feels caught between contrasts, the sharp clarity of daylight and the lingering shadows of the night. It mirrors the duality that lives within you and your comrades, the light of hope and camaraderie, the shadow of hardship and loss. You move through the camp with a steady rhythm, the weight of your gear grounding you amid thoughts that drift like drifting clouds. You pause by the edge of the village, where the broken remnants of homes stand silhouetted against the sky. Sunlight filters through shattered windows and splintered beams, casting fractured patterns of light and shadow on the ground. It is a landscape both ruined and alive, a testament to resilience etched into every cracked stone and twisted nail. Nearby, a group of soldiers quietly cleans their weapons, their faces marked by the weariness of battle, but softened by fleeting smiles shared in small moments of relief. The easy companionship contrasts with the harsh reality of the world beyond, the discrimination and segregation they face even as they fight for freedom. It is a paradox that settles heavily on your heart, a reminder that this war is fought on many fronts, not just against a distant enemy. You recall a conversation from the night before when one of the men spoke softly about his family back home, about the music his mother played on old records, the smells of Sunday dinners, the laughter that filled their small house. Those stories light a spark inside you, threads of warmth woven through the cold fabric of the present. As the day unfolds, you move with your unit to patrol the outskirts of the village. The ground beneath your boots is uneven, scarred by craters and footprints that tell tales of conflict. The silence here is thick, broken only by the distant calls of birds and the occasional rustle of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. Walking this path, you are keenly aware of the fragile balance between vigilance and weariness. Every shadow could hide danger, every sound might be a warning. Yet beneath that alertness lies a quiet determination, an unspoken promise to protect each other and the ideals you fight for. In a brief pause, you find yourself staring at a small patch of wild grass pushing through cracked pavement. It bends and sways with the breeze, fragile but unyielding. It is a simple thing, but it carries a profound meaning, a symbol of life persisting in spite of everything. As evening approaches, the village softens into a silhouette of shadows and fading light. The men gather once more around a fire, its glow casting warmth against the cooling air. Words come slowly, stories shared in quiet tones, each one a thread that binds you closer together. You feel the weight of both shadows and light within you, the memory of losses endured, and the flicker of hope that refuses to be extinguished. This delicate balance is the pulse of your days, a steady rhythm that carries you forward through uncertainty. The night deepens, stars scattered like distant lanterns above, and you settle once again into the quiet companionship of your comrades. The world outside may be fractured and dark, but here, within this circle of shared humanity, the light still shines. The dawn arrives softly, filtered through a haze of mist that blankets the village like a delicate veil. You awaken to the faint murmur of distant birdsong mingling with the low stir of movement in camp. The air feels damp and cool against your skin, carrying the subtle scent of wet leaves and the earth's slow breath after a night's rain. It is a world suspended between darkness and light, quiet yet filled with unseen energy. As you step outside your tent, the morning feels like a fragile promise, a chance to carry forward what has been hard won, to honour those who walked this path before you. Around you, the men move with careful purpose, their faces lined with fatigue but also the steadfast resolve born of countless trials. This war has demanded so much, yet they press onward, the echoes of courage carried in every step. You join a small group preparing to patrol the nearby woods, a place heavy with memories of battles past and whispered fears of what might still lurk beyond the tree line. The foliage is thick and dark, branches reaching out like shadowed fingers, and the ground beneath is soft with fallen leaves and scattered pine needles. Each sound, twigs snapping, leaves rustling, feels amplified in the stillness, a constant reminder to remain alert. As you move deeper into the forest, your thoughts drift to the stories of valour and sacrifice that have shaped your journey. Tales passed quietly between men around campfires, stories of bravery not just on distant battlefields but in the everyday acts of endurance and defiance. The courage to stand firm when the world doubts you, the strength to hold fast to dignity in the face of injustice. These are the echoes that ripple through time, voices that refuse to be silenced. The woods feel alive with these unseen presences, as if the very trees themselves hold the memory of those who fought and fell here. You pause by a moss-covered stone, imagining the footsteps that have pressed this ground before you. The footsteps of soldiers who shared your hopes and fears, whose sacrifices ripple through the ages. As the patrol continues, you notice small signs of life amid the shadows, a cluster of wild berries, the delicate bloom of a solitary flower, a pair of birds darting through the branches. These quiet bursts of vitality are reminders that even in the darkest places life endures, and with it, the promise of renewal. Returning to camp as the sun begins to lower, the light softens, casting long golden fingers across the landscape. The men gather once more around the fire's steady glow, sharing stories and quiet laughter that seem to push back the shadows just a little further. In their faces you see the reflection of your own resolve, a collective strength born of shared struggle and unspoken understanding. You take a moment to write in your journal, the words flowing gently as you capture the day's moments. The weight of the forest silence, the flicker of life amid decay, the unyielding spirit of the men beside you. Each sentence is a tribute, a way to preserve the echoes of courage that sustain you all. As night settles, the camp grows still, wrapped in a blanket of stars that seem to pulse with quiet light. The world beyond is vast and uncertain, but here, in this fragile sanctuary, the courage of countless souls weaves a steady thread through the darkness, binding you to something larger than yourself. The evening settles over the camp like a gentle sigh, the sky deepening into a velvety blue punctuated by distant stars. The air carries a faint chill, wrapping around you softly as you move among the tents and scattered fires. Conversations have quieted, voices lowered into murmurs that blend with the subtle sounds of night. The crackling of embers, the rustle of leaves, the occasional low whistle of a night breeze threading through the trees. It feels like a fragile pause, a moment held in stillness between the chaos of yesterday and the uncertainties of tomorrow. You find yourself drawn to a small circle of comrades seated close together, their faces illuminated by the flickering firelight. There is something profound in this gathering, not just the shared physical space, but the silent bonds forged through shared hardship. Words are few, but the presence itself speaks volumes, a testament to trust and understanding that transcends spoken language. As you settle nearby, the stories that usually fill the air seem to yield to the weight of quiet reflection. The war has taught you all to be vigilant, to speak cautiously, yet in this silence there is an unspoken acknowledgement of the deeper ties that bind you. These bonds are stitched together by moments both ordinary and extraordinary, by shared meals eaten quickly between drills, by letters passed in secret, by the mutual sheltering against the harsh winds of discrimination and danger. You think of the long nights spent in tents like this, the conversations half whispered in the dark, the laughter that sometimes breaks through the tension like a sudden light. It is these moments, small, often overlooked, that form the bedrock of resilience. They remind you that beneath the uniform and the battlefield you're not alone. The fire's glow dances softly on the faces around you, revealing eyes that hold stories of loss and hope, fatigue, and determination. Each man carries a history shaped by a world that too often sought to diminish him. Yet here, in this circle, those histories intertwine, creating a tapestry stronger than any one thread alone. Outside, the night deepens, and the sounds of camp fade into a soothing lullaby. The distant call of an owl, the whisper of wind weaving through the branches, the steady breathing of men settling into sleep. You close your eyes briefly, feeling the pulse of life around you, the quiet strength of these silent bonds anchoring you in place. Your thoughts wander to the future, the world that will come after this war. You wonder if these bonds will endure beyond the battlefield, if the courage and brotherhood forged in fire will find a place in the peace. The uncertainty lingers, but so does a quiet hope, carried gently in the shared silences of the night. Rising, you move back to your tent, the soft crunch of leaves beneath your boots, a steady rhythm beneath the vast star-studded sky. Inside, the familiar weight of your journal waits. You reach for it, and your pen moves slowly, tracing the contours of the day's quiet moments, capturing the invisible threads that hold you and your brothers together. In these silent bonds you find strength, a reminder that even in the darkest hours, connection endures, unseen, unspoken, yet unbreakable. The dawn's first light filters faintly through the thin canvas walls of your tent, casting a pale, greyish glow that gently stirs you awake. The air is cool and still, holding the quiet weight of morning before the world fully rouses. Outside, the soft murmurs of camp life begin, the rustling of canvas, the low hum of voices, the distant clatter of gear being readied. It's a familiar symphony, marking the start of another day marked by uncertain tasks and the heavy demands of duty. You move slowly, the chill morning air pressing gently against your skin, a reminder that this day, like all the others, will require endurance both physical and mental. Stepping outside, you feel the earth beneath your boots, soft and uneven, grounding you in this foreign place, this strange crossroads where the personal and the political collide. Around you, the camp is already alive with movement, but beneath the surface there is a tension that quietly hums, a tug between the call of duty and the deeper yearning for recognition and respect. The war presses on, relentless and unyielding, and yet here you stand at an intersection not just of battlefields, but of identity. You're a soldier fighting for a nation that still wrestles with the contradictions of its own ideals, championing freedom abroad while denying it at home. This paradox colours every step you take, every order you follow, and every moment of camaraderie or isolation that fills the hours. Your thoughts drift back to conversations held late into the night, discussions about the future, about what it might mean to return home after the war. There is hope, yes, but also a quiet, persistent uncertainty. How will the world see you then? Will the uniform shield you or expose you? Will the sacrifices made here be enough to chip away at the walls of prejudice and segregation that still surround your communities? As the sun rises higher, casting sharp light on the weathered faces of your comrades, you steel yourself for the day's tasks. Orders come and go, patrols to lead, equipment to check, messages to relay. Each duty carries weight, a small piece of the larger effort to push back darkness both literal and figurative. Walking through the camp, you notice the subtle gestures exchanged between men, an arm lightly resting on a shoulder, a quiet nod of acknowledgement, a shared glance that speaks volumes without words. These are the threads that stitch the fabric of brotherhood tighter, binding you in a collective resolve that transcends the hardships imposed from outside. Despite the challenges, you find moments of quiet strength in the routine, the steady rhythm of drills, the focused calm before a mission, the shared meal eaten under a sky that seems vast and indifferent. Each act is a statement, a small but meaningful assertion of your place in this world. As afternoon fades to evening, the horizon softens, painted in hues of rose and amber. The camp settles once more into a rhythm of preparation and quiet reflection. You sit for a moment, watching the sky shift slowly, and consider the crossroads you face, not just as a soldier, but as a man shaped by history, carrying the weight of both duty and hope. The path ahead is uncertain, marked by shadows and light intertwined, but within you burns a steady flame, a commitment to persevere, to bear witness, and to claim the dignity that this journey demands. The evening settles softly over the camp, draping the world in shades of deep blue and fading amber as the sun sinks low behind distant hills. The air holds a cool, gentle stillness, tinged with the faint, smoky aroma of cooking fires and the earthy scent of trampled grass. Around you, the low murmur of conversation drifts through the camp, quiet voices sharing fragments of news, hopes, and memories. The day's work has eased into a calm, measured rhythm, but your thoughts linger elsewhere, drawn towards something far beyond the immediate moment. You find yourself seated beside a small, flickering lantern, its warm glow casting gentle shadows on the worn pages of a letter you hold in your hands. The paper feels fragile, creased from travel and countless foldings, yet within its delicate fibres rests a lifeline, a connection to home, to the lives waiting quietly on the other side of oceans and battlefields. Reading the carefully penned words, you feel the presence of a loved one, a mother's gentle concern, a sister's playful teasing, a partner's steady encouragement. Each sentence carries the weight of care and longing, a reminder that no matter how far you roam, the ties of family and friendship endure. The letter speaks of ordinary things, the slow passage of days, the changing seasons, the small joys and sorrows of life far removed from the thunder of war. Yet these simple details are a balm, a whisper of normalcy in a world fractured by conflict. Around you, others share the same ritual, clutching letters that bridge the vast distances between soldiers and those they hold dear. The exchange of news, stories, and sentiments becomes a sacred act, a moment of intimacy amid the impersonal machinery of war. For a few fleeting minutes, the harsh realities soften, replaced by the tender warmth of human connection. You imagine the hands that wrote these words, the faces that scanned them for comfort and reassurance. It is a shared experience, binding you to countless others who fight not just with weapons but with hope and memory. The letters become vessels of resilience, carrying voices that refuse to be silenced by hardship or prejudice. As the night deepens, the camp grows quieter, the conversations dwindling into murmurs before fading into the gentle rhythm of breathing and the occasional crackle from the dying fire. You fold the letter carefully, tucking it close like a precious talisman, a reminder that even here, in the heart of uncertainty, you are not alone. The stars twinkle overhead, distant and serene, watching silently as you close your eyes for a moment and feel the steady pulse of life beyond the battlefield. The letters from afar are more than ink and paper. They are threads weaving you into the fabric of a larger story, one of endurance, love, and unwavering hope. The dawn spills softly through the thin fabric of your tent, casting pale, shifting patterns on the worn canvas walls as the world slowly stirs awake. The air is cool and still, filled with the faint scent of damp earth and wood smoke lingering from the night's fires. Outside, the camp begins to rouse, muted footsteps on soft grass, the gentle clink of metal gear, the low murmur of voices awakening from restless sleep. In this fragile moment between night and day, you find yourself caught in the delicate space between duty and the quiet stirrings of your own inner world. You dress carefully, the fabric of your uniform cool against your skin, the weight of your gear familiar and grounding. The orders you've received are clear. There is work to be done, missions to be undertaken, and responsibilities that cannot wait. Yet beneath the surface of this structured routine, your mind drifts toward dreams, those private hopes and fears that follow you like shadows even in daylight. Walking through the camp, you observe your comrades preparing for the day ahead. There is a solemnity in their movements, a silent understanding that the days are measured not just by tasks completed, but by the endurance required to face what lies beyond. Each man carries his own burden, shaped by the harsh realities of war and the quiet battles fought within. You think about the future, the fragile promise it holds, and the obstacles that loom large. You wonder about the world you'll return to, the changes you hope to see, and the role you will play in shaping it. These thoughts mingle with memories of home, the laughter of children, the steady hands of family, the music that once filled quiet rooms. They feel like distant light, faint but persistent, flickering at the edges of a long night. Amid the disciplined cadence of drills and preparations, these moments of introspection are a refuge. They remind you that beneath the uniform and the duties lies a man shaped by dreams, by the longing for a life more just and whole. It is this inner world, fragile, private, yet fiercely alive, that sustains you when the noise of conflict grows too loud. The sun climbs higher, bathing the camp in warm light, and the sounds of orders and movement swell once more. You take a deep breath, steadying yourself, and step forward to meet the day's demands. But even as you move through the tasks, the dreams linger quietly, woven into each step, a subtle reminder that you carry more than a rifle. You carry hope. The afternoon sun filters through the canopy of trees, dappling the ground with shifting patterns of light and shade as you make your way toward the nearby village. The air is warm but tempered by a soft breeze that stirs the leaves overhead, carrying the mixed scents of earth, smoke, and distant wood smoke. Around you, the sounds of life, children's laughter echoing faintly, the murmur of voices, the occasional bark of a dog, create a gentle, steady backdrop against the quiet rhythm of your footsteps. As you enter the village square, your eyes sweep over the faces gathered there, men, women, and children. Their expressions a blend of curiosity, weariness, and cautious hope. You notice the worn lines etched by years of hardship, the resilience reflected in steady gazes, and the quiet dignity carried in their posture despite the circumstances. These are the people whose lives intersect with your own in this war-torn place, silent witnesses to the upheaval and uncertainty that has become the fabric of your days. Among the crowd, you catch glimpses of familiar figures, fellow soldiers from different units, local villagers, workers repairing what they can of shattered homes. Each face tells a story, a fragment of the larger narrative of survival and endurance. In their eyes, you see reflections of your own experience, the longing for peace, the weight of loss, the flicker of determination that keeps hope alive. You pause near a small market stall where a woman carefully arranges a modest display of fruits and vegetables. Her hands move with practiced grace, steady despite the scars of hardship. She offers a quiet smile as you pass, a brief connection that transcends language and circumstance. It is a reminder that beneath the divisions of war and duty, shared humanity persists, fragile but unyielding. As you continue through the square, you notice children playing among the ruins, their laughter a fragile melody amid the shadows of destruction. They weave between broken walls and scattered debris, embodying a resilience born of necessity. Their games are simple yet profound, small acts of joy that assert life in the face of despair. In this mosaic of faces, you find both comfort and challenge. Comfort in the knowledge that you are part of a larger story, connected to lives beyond your own. Challenge in the awareness of the fragility that surrounds you all, the precariousness of safety, the uncertain horizon ahead. The sun begins its slow descent, casting long shadows that stretch across the village. The crowd disperses, returning to homes or shelters, their steps slow and measured as the day wanes. You linger a moment longer, absorbing the quiet strength etched into this place, a testament to endurance beneath adversity. As you turn back toward camp, the weight of the day settles gently upon your shoulders, not as a burden, but as a reminder of the shared journey you travel alongside these faces in the crowd, each carrying their own hopes, fears, and unspoken stories. The evening wraps around the camp like a soft blanket, the sky shifting from deep cobalt to ink black, scattered with countless stars that shimmer faintly in the cool night air. The fire's gentle crackle fills the quiet spaces between the low murmur of voices and the occasional rustle of tents settling into stillness. You find a solitary spot near the edge of camp, where the shadows stretch long and the world feels hushed, as if holding its breath. Settling down on the cool grass, you lean back against a rough-hewn log, the texture grounding you in the present. The day's memories drift softly through your mind, the faces in the village, the children's laughter, the faint smiles exchanged with strangers who carry their own burdens. It is in these quiet moments that the weight of your experience feels most tangible, a complex weave of hope, sorrow, resilience, and longing. Your thoughts turn inward, reflecting on the paradoxes that have marked this journey. You recall the pride of donning the uniform, the sense of purpose that came with answering the call to serve, and the fierce determination to prove your worth in a world that often sought to deny it. Yet alongside that pride lies the sharp sting of injustice, the segregation, the discrimination, the subtle and overt reminders that your service was not always met with equal respect. You think of the men you have come to know, Brothers in arms who have shared your struggles and your victories, whose courage is a quiet rebellion against the world's harsh judgments. Their stories intertwine with yours, forming a tapestry of resilience that extends beyond the battlefield, into the very fabric of who you are. The firelight flickers across the darkened trees, casting dancing shadows that seem to move with a life of their own. The night air carries the distant call of an owl, a solitary sound that echoes in the stillness. In this vast quiet you feel both small and connected, a single thread in the sprawling, intricate weave of history. You reach for your journal, the familiar weight a comfort as you trace the ink across the page. Your words come slowly, shaped by the day's reflections. A record not just of events, but of the feelings that pulse beneath them. It is a way to make sense of the contradictions, to honour the journey and the men who walk it with you. As the camp settles deeper into night, you close your journal and gaze upward, where the stars hang like distant beacons. They remind you of the long road behind and the uncertain path ahead, but also of the enduring light that guides you, a quiet flame of hope, perseverance and dignity that no darkness can extinguish. The morning light filters softly through the flaps of your tent, spilling a gentle glow over the neatly stacked belongings and the folded uniform laid out with care. The air carries the faint scent of dew on grass, and the lingering warmth of a campfire recently extinguished. Outside, the world begins to stir, the distant chatter of men preparing for the day, the rhythmic thud of boots on dirt paths, and the occasional call of a bird greeting the dawn. Today, your thoughts turn once more to the letters you carry, the fragile threads that connect you across miles and memories to those waiting back home. The paper is thin, worn at the edges from journeys through countless hands, yet within it lies the power to bridge the vast expanse between front lines and hearths. These letters carry more than words. They carry hopes, reassurances, and the unspoken promise that love endures despite the shadows cast by war. You take a moment to reread one, the familiar handwriting curling across the page in loops and lines that feel like the touch of a distant hand. The letter speaks of everyday life, the changing seasons, a neighbour's health, small triumphs and trials, details that feel both distant and deeply grounding. It reminds you that beyond the roar of artillery and the strict orders of command, life continues with all its quiet rhythms and resilience. As you fold the letter carefully, you reflect on the role these messages play in your days. They are a lifeline, anchoring you amid the shifting tides of uncertainty. Each letter is a fragile beacon, a whisper from home that carries strength and comfort. They remind you that you're not alone in this vast turbulent world, that somewhere someone waits, watches, and hopes for your safe return. Around the camp, others engage in the same ritual, reading, writing, folding and exchanging letters with a care born of necessity. The act of communication becomes a shared sanctuary, a momentary respite from the harshness of conflict. It is a subtle rebellion against the isolation imposed by war and discrimination, a declaration that connection and humanity persist even in the darkest times. You tuck the letter into your pack, feeling its reassuring weight. It is a symbol not only of personal ties but of the larger story you are part of, the story of countless men who have carried both rifle and hope, who have fought not just for victory, but for recognition, dignity, and a better future. As the camp pulses with renewed energy and purpose, you stand and prepare to face the day ahead. The letters carried home are a reminder that no matter how far you travel, or how difficult the road, the bonds of love and memory remain steadfast, a quiet force sustaining you through every challenge. The barracks sit quietly in the early morning, their wooden walls weathered and worn, standing firm against the chill that clings to the air like a faint whisper. Inside, the muted light filters through small, dusty windows, casting long, soft shadows over rows of neatly made bunks and scattered belongings. The scent of wood polish, damp canvas, and faint traces of yesterday's sweat mingle gently, settling into the fabric of this place that has become a second home, both sanctuary and prison. You step inside, your boots echoing softly on the creaking floorboards, the sound swallowed quickly by the stillness. Around you, men move with deliberate calm, performing their morning rituals. Some adjust their uniforms, smoothing wrinkles with careful hands. Others sit quietly, polishing boots or cleaning weapons, their faces etched with quiet focus. There is a rhythm here, a steady, unspoken beat that carries the day forward. Your own movements are measured, almost automatic, shaped by months of routine and necessity. The barracks are a world apart from the chaos beyond the camp's boundaries, a space where the realities of war settle into everyday moments. Here, the weight of the uniform feels heavier and lighter all at once, both a burden and a badge of belonging. You catch snippets of conversation, low voices sharing news from home, whispered jokes, or the latest orders. Despite the segregation that separates units and sometimes divides spirits, there is an undercurrent of camaraderie, a fragile yet fierce bond that grows from shared experience and mutual respect. In this place, walls are more than physical. They are boundaries to be navigated carefully, sometimes challenged silently. You pause by your bunk, glancing at the letters and photographs carefully tucked beneath your pillow, the silent reminders of why you endure. They are your anchor in this sea of uncertainty, the fragile threads of normalcy in a life stretched thin between hope and hardship. The quiet moments here, between duties and drills, are precious, a chance to breathe, to remember, and to prepare. Outside, the camp hums with activity, but within these wooden walls time flows differently. It slows to the pace of steady breaths, measured steps, and the soft rustle of fabric. The barracks hold stories untold, of dreams deferred, of courage quiet but unyielding, of a generation that carries history in their hearts as they move through this chapter. As the day unfolds, you gather your things, steeling yourself to step back into the larger world beyond these walls. But for a moment longer, you savour the stillness, the brief sanctuary of the barracks, a place where, despite everything, you are seen and remembered. As twilight softens the edges of the day, a gentle melody drifts through the camp, weaving softly between tents and trees like a whispered promise. The sound is low and steady, the slow, soulful notes of a trumpet calling out across the fading light. It carries a tenderness that feels both fragile and resolute, a thread of humanity pulled taut against the backdrop of war. You follow the music, your footsteps light on the cool earth, drawn toward the source like a moth to a distant flame. Around you, the camp begins to settle into the rhythms of evening, the clinking of cups, the murmur of conversations winding down, the occasional bark of a dog echoing through the shadows. But the trumpet's song lingers, a haunting balm that cuts through the quiet with a voice full of memory and longing. Near a cluster of tents, you find the musician, a fellow soldier, his eyes closed as he breathes life into the instrument. His fingers move with practiced grace, coaxing out notes that speak of places left behind, of dreams carried in the heart, and of a resilience that refuses to be silenced. The music seems to wrap itself around the camp, softening the edges of fear and fatigue, drawing even the most guarded souls into its fold. You take a seat nearby, the rough ground cool beneath your hands, and allow yourself to be carried by the melody. It is a moment suspended outside of time, where the burdens of the day and the uncertainties of tomorrow recede into the background. In this shared silence, the music becomes a language beyond words, a bridge connecting stories, struggles, and hopes. The trumpet's voice speaks of jazz clubs in distant cities, of family gatherings and Sunday mornings, of a culture vibrant and alive despite the shadows of segregation and war. It tells of the men who fought not only on battlefields but against prejudice, whose courage echoed in both gunfire and song. Each note is a tribute to those who carried their identity with pride, who found solace and strength in music's embrace. As the final notes fade into the night, a hush settles over the camp, leaving a lingering sense of peace and connection. The soldier lowers his trumpet gently, a quiet smile touching his lips, and the world feels a little softer, a little warmer for a while. You rise slowly, the melody still humming softly in your mind, a reminder that even amid hardship, there are moments of grace, small lights shining through the darkness, guiding the way forward. The night deepens around the camp, a heavy velvet curtain sprinkled with faint distant stars, and the air grows cooler, carrying the crisp scent of damp earth and pine. You sit quietly on a low mound just beyond the rows of tents, the ground firm beneath you, the shadows stretching long and still. Around you, the camp settles into a tentative silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of a breeze or the distant murmur of sentries pacing their posts. This is a time suspended between moments, between action and stillness, between hope and uncertainty. Your eyes scan the darkened horizon, where faint shapes merge with the night, and the weight of waiting presses gently but persistently. There is an unspoken tension in this pause, a collective breath held by all who stand watch. You feel the pull of the unknown, the stories not yet told, the battles yet to come. Yet in this quiet, there is also a strange kind of peace, a space to gather strength, to reflect, to simply be. Around you, other soldiers sit or stand, their faces half lit by flickering lanterns or the faint glow of distant fires. Some speak in hushed tones, sharing memories or hopes. Others are lost in their own thoughts, eyes distant as if reaching beyond the dark to places far away. You recognize the shared experience in their stillness, the mingling of anxiety and resolve, the need to stay vigilant and the longing for something more. The night seems to fold around you, embracing you in its vast, silent expanse. The rhythm of the camp slows to the steady beat of watches ticking, the soft crunch of footsteps on leaves, the occasional sigh carried on the wind. In these moments of waiting, time stretches, revealing the deeper layers beneath the surface, fears unspoken, bonds quietly forged, dreams held close against the cold. You think of home again, the faces waiting, the letters carried and sent, the promise of a world changed by your service. You feel the steady pulse of purpose beneath the uncertainty, the quiet determination that keeps you rooted even as the shadows lengthen. As the night moves onward, you remain alert but calm, a sentinel in the darkness, carrying both the weight of history and the fragile hope for dawn. The first pale light of dawn seeps slowly into the sky, washing the camp in soft shades of pink and grey. The air is cool, still heavy with the night's dampness, and a gentle mist clings to the ground like a fragile veil. Around you, the camp begins to stir again. Tent flaps rustle softly, voices rise in quiet greetings, and the familiar sounds of preparation fill the morning with a sense of calm renewal. You rise, feeling the lingering weight of night's vigil in your limbs, and take a slow breath, filling your lungs with the crisp, fresh air. The world feels momentarily suspended, caught between the darkness just past and the uncertain promise of a new day. The long hours of waiting, the quiet fears, and the small acts of courage fold gently into this dawn, as if the night itself has woven them into the fabric of the morning light. Walking among your comrades, you notice their faces softened by rest, their eyes clearer though still marked by the lines of hardship. There is a quiet resilience here, a steady determination that does not waver despite everything endured. Together you move forward, bound by the shared experience of struggle and hope, each step a testament to the strength carried not only in arms but in spirit. The camp feels alive with possibility, the sounds of birds beginning their morning songs blending with the distant hum of activity. Somewhere, a trumpet's soft notes rise again, a gentle reminder of the endurance and humanity that have carried you this far. You hold on to that music, the memory of voices and faces, the letters and dreams, as a quiet flame that will burn beyond this moment. In the stillness of the dawn, you understand that this journey, marked by courage, sacrifice, and the search for dignity, will continue long after the last battle is fought. It is a story woven into the larger tapestry of history, one that carries the hopes of those who came before and those yet to come. With the morning light warming your face, you prepare to face the day ahead, carrying the past softly in your heart and the future quietly within reach. As the soft morning light settles gently over the camp, casting a warm glow on the faces of those who have endured so much, we come to the close of this story, one of courage, resilience, and quiet strength. The journey of these men, whose service was often overlooked, reminds us of the enduring power of hope amid hardship, and the profound human spirit that carries us through even the darkest times. Thank you for sharing this moment of reflection and history. Wherever you are, may you find comfort in knowing that stories like these are remembered, and may the quiet courage of those who came before inspire peace within you. Rest now, wrapped in calm and safety. Let your thoughts drift softly like the fading stars, and may your sleep be deep and restorative. Good night.